Hey, welcome to Refocused Radio. Once again, we are here today, and just like any other time, we have another amazing show for y'all today. If you're into yoga, if you're into spiritual and life coaching, well, we have a perfect guest for you. We have Jennifer Kenney-Smith. She's on with us today. Go visit her website. You can see it on the screen if you're watching this on YouTube. It's real simple, real easy. It's jksyoga.com. She is a life coach, a yoga teacher, and she's going to share with us not just her personal story, but she has a professional background as well, being in the corporate world, but answering her call, understand that there's some pain points that she was able to address. She has her own personal story, what caused her to get into this. So first and foremost, I want to say to you, Jennifer, thank you for your time today. How are you doing today?
I'm amazing. Thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited to be here.
Well, I appreciate you taking time to be with us. So kind of paint the picture for us. I understand that a lot of people, they have what they call a midlife crisis, but you also had a powerful awakening. So kind of tell us a little bit of your personal story, what caused you to start this whole thing.
Yeah, thank you. So I found myself climbing the corporate ladder, being all that I thought I could be. And I left a really unhealthy marriage and was still climbing that corporate ladder. It's where I found my purpose and my meaning, or so I thought. So single mom and looking for certainty through my work, that validation, that affirmation, that atta girl. And I ended up having an altercation with my boss over something that I believed was the right thing to do for my team and for the company. And I had been in this role in this industry for 2 decades, so I wasn't new. I had authority, so I thought, but he disagreed. And so during this altercation, I got deeply triggered. I ended up getting out of this closed door meeting where he threatened my job, told me he could fire me, which was unfounded and unethical, and he couldn't have. But I didn't hear it in the sense of a powerful businesswoman. I heard it in the sense of a fragile girl who had been in a disruptive life since childhood and hadn't attended to deep core trauma wounds of childhood. I was raised by 2 alcoholics and then married into a very dysfunctional relationship with my then soon to be divorced husband. So this was back in 2011, 2012-ish. Anyway, I don't know how to process this fear of my security, my certainty, of my livelihood, of my brand, everything that I built. And I went straight into panic, like, I'm going to lose my job. I'm going to lose my house, which was not normal. If you're not in a trauma response, it's not a normal reaction. So what happened to the body is I turned into high functioning anxiety, panic attacks, unable to project or speak or lead my team at our team meetings or events or forecasting. I was in a sales leadership role. So I was wise enough to know something had to change. This isn't working. My boss didn't fire me, but I hated him. And maybe it wasn't fair because a lot of the pain and anger and resentment I had from growing up had not been dealt with. So he's the trigger, so therefore he's the target. He's now the villain of my story. And today I won't say we're friends. I don't even know him anymore, but he's been a huge advocate in my own journey. Like, he is a proponent that forced me into a place of going backwards in my life and not healing and developing and continuing to grow or to grow. I saw somebody recently post on LinkedIn about the toxic work environment, and leaders who are toxic are causing, the turmoil and the downfall of the entire company. And yeah, sure, I agree to a certain degree, but if it wasn't for this experience in my life, I wouldn't be where I am today. So the panic attacks, I was so embarrassed to be in my work role and not be able to lead and perform the way I was there to do for the company. I go to therapy. And the therapist is tuned in enough to tell me some anatomy of the body that's happening with this anxiety and this panic. And she just tells me I need to go to yoga so I can learn how to breathe. I need the diaphragmatic breath. She doesn't go into rest and digest. She doesn't talk about the nervous system or pain or trauma, really. She just encourages yoga. And I'm totally resistant. I think I'm going to go lay on a mat and listen to like sound bowls and chant ohms. And it's the last thing I want to do. Because as a high performer, I was also an athlete. I love to run. I like to kickbox. And what I now know in hindsight is there was a pattern of beating the crap out of myself. And the longer I could feel pain that I was creating, then I didn't have to sit in the pain that somebody else maybe created for me. So there's this idea of like the only way through is through, but the new translation is the only way out is in. So if I could stop replacing the disorder and the destruction that was happening in my own personal body and my own personal life and do the work, things could shift and things could change. And that's exactly what happened. So I did go to yoga. I'm a good student. I thought if I could get rid of this dysregulation in my body, I could then lead the team. I could be back into certainty. I could get back in the good graces of my skills and my ability to make an impact. So yoga was hard. It wasn't an easy experience. We didn't lay on mats. We didn't chant. We moved. It was power vinyasa flow, divinely guided for me to be in that room at the right time, because it was the first time in my life I couldn't run. Literally, I couldn't run for myself. I'm on a little square, rectangle yoga mat. The room was packed. It was hot. The door was behind me. The moves were fast and rigorous. And at some point, I couldn't keep up. And not so much a place of a feeling defeated, because that wasn't the energy or the emotion, but it shifted me into a surrender. It shifted me into a place of not needing to perform, because I promise you, I went into that room and I was certain I was going to be the best yoga student. I'd never done yoga. How was I going to be the best? But I needed to feel so qualified and equipped, because my sense of purpose and love and enoughness came from all the ways I had been conditioned to perform. So there's no score for the best yoga in a yoga class, of course. I certainly wasn't going to get it that day, because I ended up that specific class in a puddle of my own sweat and my own tears, trying to not vomit because it was so rigorous, so hard. And there was so much that needed to be purged from my physiology, from the energy body, from the parts of me that had pretended for my whole life that I was good enough. And deep down inside, I didn't believe that is true. So I faked it. I was a poser. I pretended. And it all fell apart on that yoga mat, which gave me access to me, the real me, not the me that society, culture, religion, parents, my ex-husband, my job, my W-2, all the external ways that validated me in a way that I thought was special enough to be loved. And so the yoga mat journey has been the hero's journey, honestly, where today on a daily basis, even 12 years later, still I have to go in and remember who I am and recall the sovereignty and recall the promise of God that I am worthy and I am here for greatness. And there is nothing of limitation or lack unless I play small enough and believe that lie and that untruth. So it's a resonance, it's a reclamation, it's a new restoration of who are we and what are we here to do, and what impact can we make when we're leading from strength, not from the suffering. So we shift it. And that's literally what changed. The biggest change in my life was me, that I found in a yoga class about 12 years ago.
Once again, you listen on Refocused Ready and watching us online, talking to our special guest today, Jennifer Kenney-Smith, yoga teacher, life and spiritual business coach. Go to our website, jksyoga.com. So follow up on everything you said. One thing that caught my attention was a lot of times for individuals, especially those who are high performers, sometimes we have issues with letting go. And letting go is something that we have to do in order for the new opportunities that are ahead of us to actually take root. For your personal experience, when you start going to those classes and start the whole process of, I guess you could say, getting yourself free, what was it like for you personally to let go of the old patterns, the old thoughts, as you start to embark on this new journey?
Yeah, it's not easy because it's programmed in us. It's encoded. It's everything and anything we had ever picked up along the way of life, and also the way that life has mirrored back to us. If we acted a certain way and we got accolades or appreciation or just somebody's attention, right? I think about this as a woman, how I would receive attention from men, and sometimes I enjoyed that, sometimes I didn't. And then I would know how to behave going forward, just like that with work. We can see in sports how we're really conditioned, encoded. So how do you reprogram that? It wasn't just one yoga class. It's been a really long and relentless journey, but with the desire that on the other side, every time it gets better. Every time that tightness of feeling imperfect and not enough, that loosens up just a little bit. And with the curiosity that we are co-creating, you get to remove like the shell or the cloak, the way that we hide, and then see what else can be underneath there, whether that's just a change of a dress or your makeup or your shoes or your suit. Like, it doesn't have to necessarily be like this huge shift in careers. That's something I did. I totally changed careers and completely transformed my life. I now have my own business. I left a toxic marriage is another one. And we continue to evolve for the greater good of ourselves. And then maybe there's a place in there that you're also seeing the impact that people are saying, wow, you're different. What did you do? Because now maybe you look happy, you look healthier. So there's choices we get to make, but the resilience comes through the desire to continue to persevere through it, to take off each layer at a time. I'm so inspired by spring, and I just taught a class this morning on the regeneration of the earth, the flowers and the plants and the trees. Everything is so beautiful, starting to change right now. And do we choose to stay in the frequency of earth and the earth of the winter? So it's dense. It's earth and water is the frequency of winter, according to Ayurveda. So it's damp and it's dense, and that's why we hibernate and we rest and we sleep, and everything is barren. The trees are dead. Everything just looks dead, and we get a little bit depressed, right? Or a lot. And then we look at spring, and it's more vibrant, and the trees are changing, and the flowers are just out there like flirting with us. And where do we feel more inclined to be alive? It's not winter for me, for sure. It's definitely spring. So if we can just take the example of earth and nature and be curious enough of like, what part of me feels dormant or deadened or not alive, or we're lacking vitality. In Ayurveda, we call it ojas, where there's a lack of brightness and vitality to our life overall, the body, the mind, the heart, the spirit. And do we want to maybe try something new? And then, therefore, you had mentioned this, that it takes space. You have to open up. I think you had said the letting go. You have to let something go, or at least loose, to create space so the newness can be channeled through you or birthed through you or created through you. And that's the co-creation. You get to conspire for the good shift in your life, not just the suffering. Yeah, so I love it. I'm literally obsessed with it. I'm kind of a junkie, and not so much like the biohacker, because I'm not trying to spiritually bypass my growth. I mean, I'm in for the dark and the light, but it's become a new rhythm for me of how else can I iterate, pivot, shift, evolve, grow, rinse, and repeat, to never go back, because otherwise it felt encaged. I felt trapped for a long time, uninspired, and just unhealthy, really.
And speaking of hacking, in life, there's no video game comparison, because in video games you might have cheat codes, but in life there's really no cheat codes. It's basically like as soon as you have a great day, there's going to be another day around the corner where it's going to start raining, and the sun is going to disappear for a little while. But I like what you talked about spring, because when you think about how seasons change, it's something that is coming. You can't control it. It's just coming. It's going to happen. So I think that leads to my next question, where we think about just self-love. You hear a lot of people talk about, especially in the professional world, business owner or whatever the case may be, self-love, making time for yourself, encouraging yourself, not being so harsh on yourself, still have discipline, obviously, but at the same time, practicing self-love and compassion. it's something that we need to kind of show ourselves at the same time, because it's easy to be caught up in the rat race. I got to do this, I got to do that. But if you run on E, you can't help anybody. So how were you able to also practice, what do I need at this moment? Because if I don't take care of myself, it's hard to take care of everybody else.
Yeah, 100%. So that took me a little while to figure out that something was even void in my life. I had believed the hype, like I was it. You would have saw my Facebook and been like, she's living her best life ever, because that's what I would have told you. I mean, I had a mantra like, I'll sleep when I'm dead, like I'm crushing it. And it was just a facade. But I didn't know until I started doing the deep inner work to realize, wow, I'm not happy. And so I had to go from the fake happy, the false sense of identity, to the deep discovery and unveiling. The truth was, I was deeply hurt. I was deeply traumatized, and I needed a lot of help. And I've had a lot of therapy and a lot of coaches and a lot of teachers. And I encourage everyone listening, like, once you peel off the lid and you start to see that truth, that maybe there's something's wrong, not that you're broken. I think we have parts of us that feel shattered and maybe mangled, but we're not broken. We just need to find the way to heal through the brokenness, the things that have felt fragmented. So before I got to self-love, I had to find and witness the part of me that actually hated myself. There was a deep self-suffering. There was a deep loathing. There was a deep separation of self-identity, because it was all fake. It was all a facade, just to pretend that I was good enough so nobody could actually see the pain in the little girl that was really deeply traumatized. So once I realized, and I remember witnessing it one day, opening a door and saying to my reflection, "You're effing disgusting." And that was my truth at the time. And then I'd start to witness it. So we become the observer of these moments instead of just, 10 feet ahead of ourselves. So I started to see, well, whose voice is that? And why? What did I do to deserve that kind of language of myself? I wouldn't speak to my children that way. And I wouldn't speak to the people I love that way, or my best friend. So where is it coming from? And it's a repetition of a pattern of something that we've learned, usually from commercial consumerism. We've been taught, because if we feel like crap, we'll go buy things like, clothes or supplements or retreats. And I'm not saying retreats aren't great, but you may not need all this stuff. How much of what we identify with what is beautiful today is all external. It's very superficial. It's very sad to me, because I spent most of my life living there, looking for the next thing to find my appreciation of myself or approval. So in the moments where I'd hear myself saying these very unkind things, I started to think, well, if this isn't my truth, because we are born in the expression of God, and He doesn't make mistakes. And in the perfection that I witness, for example, if I look at an animal and I'm like, wow, that's the most beautiful. I have 2 German Shepherds, like the most exquisite animals. And they're not flawed and they're not broken. So why do we see ourselves in such a disorder and such disdain? And so I started playing with that. Well, what if I could be kinder to myself? And the steps for that is just some mirror work. Catch your gaze in the mirror, and could you allow yourself to just soften, to not need to be something that you're not, or better than you think you're supposed to be? This perfectionism that's just the thief of all joy, honestly. It's not even a realistic way to live. So if you can just soften and lean into, just find one thing to enjoy about your reflection. So if I had a good hair day, I'd be like, oh, your hair looks really nice, or my eyes looked pretty that day, or I didn't look big like I thought. And I just was like, okay, it's not so bad. So it went from hate and disgust to it's not so bad to now I can be like, oh my God, beautiful girl, beautiful sister, beautiful woman. What a gift you are to the world. And I can live in that frequency of just honesty and love and radiance, because that's who I now emulate, and that's who I now live with. And it sounds so like external, but it's this becoming as we transgress the untruth and these lies that have been taught to us, so we can go buy more stuff, so we can live in the pain, so we can never fully express our sovereign being, our beauty that just is innately in us. So that then, from the hate and the disowning of myself, to the reclamation of myself, to the worthiness of myself, and now I mean, I don't want to sound narcissistic, but I think I'm a gift. And I think I have beautiful love to express and expand and to share with other people that are ready to receive it. And that feels very whole, no longer broken. It feels very joyful and satisfying and rich and abundant. And I think before any of that was pain and suffering and this false sense of ego telling me that I was enough, although deep down inside I wasn't, or at least that's what I felt. Yeah, so it happened in pockets and in shifts over a long time. And if I ever get one of those I don't feel great days, I hit it with compassion. Well, maybe we didn't have enough sleep, or maybe we didn't honor ourselves in a way. Maybe we're dishonoring to ourselves, but it's never a long day of that disdain, and it's never weeks or months anymore. It's maybe a 5 minute, and then I catch it and I'm like, hell no, that is not my voice. I know who I am. So I think it's part of knowing who we are and coming back to that script and that memory.
I was just about to say, when you think about how people identify what they want to be,
Yeah.
well, in some cases, you can be in a position where, or a season in your life where it's like, okay, hold up, time out. This is not what I actually want. So when you talk about that moment of shift, you actually have to be in the present moment to say, okay, let's not worry about 10 minutes from now. Let's not worry about what happened 10 years ago. What can I do in this moment?
Yeah.
Because at that time, you're able to not just begin the shift in your life, but you get to, well, I would say, I start identifying what it is you want to be.
Yeah.
And I like to think, because I heard this before, I don't know the original source, but someone said, when you look out into the world, it's a reflection of what's going on inside you.
Yeah.
One's going to say, wait, time out. What about the bad news? What about all the chaos? What about all the bad stuff? Not that part. What I mean by that is how you treat people, how you see people, how you see the outlook of life.
Yeah.
It's a direct alignment of what's going on with you.
Yeah.
You're angry. Most chances you'll be very rude, angry to others. But if you're a little bit more understanding, then there's a time and place, right? There's a time where you be a little tight, frustrated, but you will catch yourself because you don't identify with that's the way I ought to live.
Right.
You identify with the more positive, like, okay, what can I actually do to make this better? What can I do? Because sometimes we want to have all these different complicated equations, right? Like if I do this and I set the tone and all this, then I'm going to have a perfect week.
Mm.
It's not like that. It's like, even if this week goes out of whack, I have enough experience where if I made it back then what says I can't make it now?
Yeah.
Like you have a different attitude toward conflicts or, issues that just pop up. Because when you think about adversity, a lot of times it serves as a catalyst for personal growth. And if we can have you touch on that, because when you think about what you had to go through, it's almost sometimes necessary or to prepare you for the weight of the success that you have to carry today.
Yeah, and I think to be open and finding the other people that inspire you, because we don't have to do it alone. Because the adversity is part of the evolution of this identity you just mentioned. So we call it identity evolution. Because once we evolve into that next version of ourselves, something new will be unveiled or triggering. For example, after I started my business, I was looking at opening a yoga studio, a healing center, and it totally fell through. The guy that owned the space sold it to a New York broker, and then they didn't want to work with me. They had other plans, and it was at the exact same crossroad of when I retired, when I quit my corporate job. And then I had no backup plan. There was nothing. So I quickly shifted and started working mostly in the coaching space. But what would we do? What would I have done if I didn't keep moving forward? It was not a failure. It was just a shift. We need to be aware that life will, when we're ready, the next thing will open, and it might not be what you think. The next phase, that a year later, I realized I needed to stop drinking alcohol. It wasn't something that I was messy with, but it was limiting me in a way that I didn't feel my best. And I also, I know at this truth in my life that I can't have just one. I don't know if anyone else listening can relate to that, but I tried to only have one for many years, and one turned into three. And then I'm like, I can't manage this. And so that had to exit my life, which then opened up more space for deeper healing. Here's what happens when you don't have alcohol or a vice to numb with. You usually shift that then to sugar. So then I had to look at like my food intake, and where am I still numbing, even though I'm telling the world I'm an authority in spiritual healing. Well, what about me? I'm still the biggest student of my life, and life then continues to offer us. I was going to say trip us up. It will. It's not. No one promised us easy. And if we look back through ancient scriptures, it certainly hasn't been easy for most of civilization. But we think, based on what Facebook tells us and what movies tell us, everything is awesome, everything is easy. So we want to be aware that when we set the intention to expand, to grow, to shed, to become happier, more joyful, it is work. And on the other side, though, is the joy, because the hard stuff does fade away. When you had mentioned the people that are being this, the mirror effect, it's also the law of frequency and vibration and attraction. If I'm in a really crappy place, I'm going to get more crappy experiences. If I'm in a more joyful state, I'm going to have more experiences of people that show up that will resonate in that frequency too. So as we shed the old patterns of it has to be hard and I have to live in suffering, and we open up to, I'm ready and willing to see things a different way. And then the new inspired action comes in place. And then the resources, which may be people or coaches or guides, show up, and that's the next level. So we start to climb up this ladder of ascension, this ladder of improved frequency, higher frequencies. But it isn't always straight. Healing is not linear by any stretch. It's when we think it should be, or we think we're promised that, is when there's the resistance. And then we think we're owed this. I mean, how many people have been like, God, you did this to me, or your husband, or you did this. It's their fault. It's like blame and shame is not going to get us anywhere. We need to come back to what is our part, what is our responsibility, and what can we do going forward to be aligned to what we want. We get to decide. We get to choose. This is the life. And it's prime time. There's no more dress rehearsal. I think most of your listeners are probably at that midlife. Like, it's time to let's effing go. Light it up. Do the next best thing with compassion, with kindness, with love, with connection, and let everything else fall away.
Once again, this is Refocused Radio, and watching us online, talking to our guest today, Jennifer Kenney-Smith, yoga teacher, life and spiritual business coach. Go to her website, JKSYoga.com. That's JKSYoga.com. Last thing I want to say before we close is I heard this the other day, and it was during March Madness, and they was talking about a coach talking to his teammates, or his players, I should say. And the coach was talking about the philosophy of one day, 1%. Just try to get 1% better. Yeah. Every day. Because a lot of times the excitement hits us and we're like, okay, yeah, we're about to change, we're about to shift, we're about to do all this. It sounds great. And then boom, a storm comes unexpectedly. It doesn't actually announce it's coming. It'll just boom, come out of nowhere. That tests us. And that test is going to be like, all right, are you going to get better? Or are you going to get worse and worse until you just put yourself in the cave and you're not ever going to hit your fullest potential because we missed that opportunity. Just 1% better. Yeah. Like, what can I do right now to do better than yesterday? Yeah. Like, it doesn't have to be like, let me hit a home run, let me be 50% better, let me be 80% better. No, what can I do with 1%? Because that gives you not just grace, but also gives you opportunity to learn from everybody that are good in your circle, because
Yeah.
sometimes when we're meeting with frustration, we want to exclude everybody. Say you're wrong, and you're wrong. But I'll stop it here and let you take the floor. When we point, someone told me, I'm sure there's an old proverb somewhere, there's 3 more fingers pointing right back at you.
Yeah.
So before you start shifting the blame when stuff happens, think about, how can I just get better, 1% better one day?
Yeah, I'll pull that thread a little bit too and offer that in yoga, the word pranayama, it means breath practice, a breathing practice. And in yogic philosophy, that we are assigned a certain amount of breaths per lifetime. So just think of that for a second. We breathe 25,000 times a day, completely unconscious. It happens automatically, not necessarily dropping in with gratitude. Thank you for this breath. Thank you for filling my lungs with life force. Thank you for giving me the ability to connect and love and be. So if we can understand that the soul is in this body for however many breaths that's been assigned to your lifetime, it doesn't have to be exponential growth every day. It also doesn't have to be in the belly of despair for a long period of time. But if we can look at the lifeline as the breath, if you know you have a certain amount of breaths, what can you do each day to deeply connect, to honor yourself, to come back home, to not fight yourself anymore, and then just be more present with more compassion? It changes the perspective of all the doing we think we need to do to be the person we think we need to be. We don't need to do anything. We just need to be present to who we already are.
We can probably talk for another 30 minutes, but once again, listen, I'm Refocused Radio and watching us online, talking to our special guest, Jennifer Kenney-Smith. You can go to her website, is jksyoga.com. This time went by so fast, don't know where it went, but like I always want to say to you, everything you do, thank you for what you're doing for your community, but also for today, thank you for your time.
Thank you, and thank you for what you're doing. You're amazing.